हरे कृष्ण। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So we welcome you all to the third day of this course, Rediscovering Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. We hope that you had a fruitful first 2 days. So hopefully we will continue this discussion today. I will do a very quick recap of what we saw yesterday. I will not recap the first day's portions. So yesterday we discussed, continuing this discussion on definition of Uttama Bhakti, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadhyanavritam, Anukulyena Krishnana Sheelanam, Bhakti Uttama. So we saw the definition of this pure devotional service as given by Srila Rupa Goswami. And after trying to understand this definition, we did a personal evaluation exercise. We tried to evaluate our own practice of bhakti. So we discussed on this theme of, are we practicing pure devotional service? So it was an elaborate discussion that we had yesterday, and still we could not complete that theme. So I will do a quick recap of what we have seen yesterday. So yesterday we started by evaluating, by introspecting, how many of us were practicing pure devotional service. As I told you, most might have felt that no, I am not practicing pure devotional service because Anyabhilashita Shunyam, I do have other desires. And then we tried to evaluate, then are we practicing mixed devotional service then? So we saw the 3 definitions of mixed devotional service as given by Kapila Dev to Mother Devahuti in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And most of us felt, oh, probably my bhakti is a mixture of Sattva-guni, Rajoguni and Tamoguni bhakti. And eventually we saw the 3rd definition, which is a classic definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti as quoted by Krishna to Uddhava in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and re-quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami as a proof of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So this famous verse, Jata Shraddho Matkataso Nirvinnas Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman Parityage Api Anishwaraha Tato Bhajeta Mam Prita Shraddhalur Dridanischaya Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukko Darkamscha Garhayan. So we saw this definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, where it mentioned 5 characteristics of a Vaidhi Sadhaka. He has developed faith in the process, Jata Shraddho Matkatasu, Nirvinnas Sarva Karmasu, and also he has developed a kind of detachment from any other process other than bhakti. He does not feel that for his spiritual progress he need to do anything other than Navada Bhakti. Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman. He knows that any endeavor for sense gratification will eventually lead to suffering. Parityage api anishwaraha. But still, he is not always able to say no to sense gratification. And Jushamanascha tan kaman dukko darkamscha garhayan. And whenever he succumbs to sense gratification, he feels sincerely repentant and wants to overcome it. And Krishna says, Tato bhajeta mam prita shraddhalur dridanischaya. My dear devotee, please don't get depressed. Try sincerely. Don't doubt the process. And with great determination, try to move forward. This was the instruction given by Krishna to Uddhava. Not instruction, this was the definition of Vaidhi Sadhaka. And after seeing this 3rd definition, most devotees felt, oh, this definition best fits my practice of devotional service. And then we tried to understand how is it that both mixed devotional service and Vaidhi sadhana tries to fit? We tried to understand the difference between mixed devotional service and Vaidhi sadhana by trying to understand two kinds of desires. Desires are of two types, desires which are born out of our value system and desires which are born out of our conditioning. So the value system we saw is works in terms of what is right and what is wrong, and the conditioning, it works on the platform of likes and dislikes. So the value system is called as Shraddha and the conditioning is called as Swabhava. And there is a constant tug of war which always happens between something which is right and you are supposed to do, recommended by the scriptures, but you don't like to do it, and certain other things which you love to do, but the scriptures say that it's very detrimental for your devotional service. So this constant tug of war happens in the life of a sadhaka in the early stages of his devotional service. And we saw that the desires born out of one's value system are called as abhilasha, and the desires which are born out of one's conditioning, they are called as anartha. And we saw some examples of that. So we understood that Srila Rupa Goswami has, and then we did this important exercise of differentiating these two types of desires, abhilasha and anartha, and we tried to put these two in two different bins. And I asked you to share your anartha bin with me and keep the abhilasha bin with you, and then you evaluated if now your practice of bhakti is anyabhilashita shunyam. And through my experience I shared, most people say yes, now my practice of bhakti is anyabhilashita shunyam. So the point is, even in a struggling Vaidhi sadhaka's life, he should learn to differentiate the desires which are born out of his value system, which is the pure devotional value system he has received from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and those desires which are born out of his conditioning. So therefore, when he differentiates this and he understands the science of bhakti, about how bhakti accomplishes anartha nivritti, then he gets the confidence that yes, I can also practice pure devotional service. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami has defined pure devotional service as anya abhilashita shunyam and not anya anartha shunyam. Then what is the meaning of kleshagni? What is the meaning of cheto darpana marjanam? Then what does bhakti accomplish? So that is the point. So therefore we understood that even though mixed devotional service and Vaidhi sadhana seemed similar, but Vaidhi sadhana means performing devotional service with material desires, while being embarrassed by material desires in the form of anarthas. Whereas a mixed devotee, he also has these material desires, but in the form of abhilasha. Those are his most cherished desires. So this is the difference that we saw yesterday. And we saw some shastric evidences for this, where this concept of Shraddha and Swabhava is brought out. So here we saw some example from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Sadrisham cheshtate swasya prakriter jnanavan api prakritim yanti bhutani nigrah kim karishyati. How Krishna says everyone helplessly acts according to the pushings of his nature or Swabhava, Prakriti. And in the next verse he says, Indriyasya indriyasyarte ragadvesho vyavastitau tayor na vashamagachet tauhyasya paripantino. But he says, but Arjuna, one should follow the scriptures and try to align with the teachings of the scriptures rather than mindlessly act on the platform of one's likes and dislikes. This we saw. Then also we saw the example of Arjuna telling, Atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushah anichanapi varshneya baladiva niyojitah. Arjuna's question to Krishna, who says that, oh Krishna, what is it that is pushing me to act in a way that I don't like and impels me to commit these sinful activities. He says, by calling it papam charati and anichan, he indicates that his value system identifies these activities to be non-recommended, but his vasana is pushing to act in a particular direction. His conditioning is pushing him in that direction. And also we saw from the Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satatayuktanam vajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. The definition of a devotee who is always aspiring for a constant relationship with Krishna and is lovingly serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but nevertheless he has ajnanajam tamaha, darkness born out of ignorance present in the heart in the form of anarthas. And Krishna promises that I will remove it through the shining lamp of knowledge. Bhaswata jnana deepena aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami. Like this Krishna gives assurance. And then we saw this classic example in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about this apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavyas samyak vyavasito hi saha. He is suduracharo, at the same time he is bhajate mam ananyabhak. He desires to worship Krishna and he has no other desire other than the desire to please Krishna. So we discussed elaborately that how it is possible in the early stages of a Vaidhi sadhaka's life for these two desires to coexist within the heart. So the desire to please, this ananyabhak tendency is born from his value system, whereas the sudurachari tendencies are products of his anadi karama phale podi bhavar navajale. You know, this unlimited, it's a product of spending unlimited lifetimes in this material world, enjoying sense gratification. And then Krishna promises, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanehi name bhakta pranashyati. O Arjuna, I will ensure that this person becomes a dharmatma very soon. Therefore you go and loudly proclaim that my devotees shall never perish. And then we also saw this example of Parikshit Maharaj, this conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, where Shukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj wanted to know how these people can escape from suffering in hellish condition. Shukadeva Goswami says, oh, karmakandiya prayaschitta. And Parikshit Maharaj said, no, this is not possible. Why? Kvachin nivartate abhadrat kvachit charati tat punaha prayaschittam ato apartam manye kunjara shauchavat. He says that I have seen these karmakandis who sometimes refrain from sinful activities thinking that it is wrong, but at the same time unable to give it up completely, they end up indulging in those same activities and then they end up doing prayaschitta for that. What is the use? So for this reason he rejects karmakanda. But later when Shukadeva Goswami proposes Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudeva Parayana Agam Dunvanti Katsnena Niharam Eva Bhaskara. He says, oh Parikshit Maharaj, I suggest actually Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti. But Parikshit Maharaj has been a practicing devotee and he has seen other practicing devotees. And at the early stages of their sadhana bhakti, he might have seen their struggle. Kvachin nivartate abhadrat kvachit charati tat punaha. He might have seen these tendencies in devotees also. But interestingly, Parikshit Maharaj never rejects that proposal. He wholeheartedly accepts this proposal given by Shukadeva Goswami. And the Acharyas explain that if a devotee practicing pure bhakti happens to commit some sin again, it is like the bite of a snake without poisoned fangs. Those sins have no significant effect because he has accepted the process of bhakti which is capable of cleansing the impurities within the heart. And then we also saw this famous verse, spoken by Vidura to Maitreya. Yascha modatama loke, yascha buddhehe param gataha, tau bhav sukame dete klishyati antarito jana. He explains about this tug of war. He says that two kinds of people are happy. The absolute materialistic people who don't have any value system, and the perfected devotees whose value system and conditioning completely overlap with each other. But the intermediate people, these sadhakas, they are the struggling ones because their shraddha is buddhehe param gataha and their swabhava is modatama loke. So this tug of war goes on till the cleansing of the swabhava happens completely. In fact, it is this tug of war that eventually leads to the cleansing of the swabhava. If one becomes afraid of this struggle and does not willingly undergo this struggle, he will remain a modatama loke and he can never become a perfected devotee. So therefore, this struggle is difficult, but it is absolutely necessary to experience the higher taste. If a sadhaka is lazy to undergo this struggle, then the higher taste will always be elusive. And then we also saw from Madhurya Kadambini where Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti mentions that the purification of heart, purification of anartha is in stages. Ekadeshavartini, Bahudeshavartini, Prayiki, Atyantiki, Purna and Atyantiki. In 5 stages gradually, starting from Bhajana Kriya till Bhava and Prema, it gradually only gets destroyed. Therefore, immediate destruction of anarthas is not expected in a sadhaka's life. This is where we paused last time. This is a brief recap of what we saw yesterday. So today we will now start today's discussion. As I told you yesterday, devotees used to ask me, whenever I used to present this concept, they would say, it sounds very attractive and all right, but we have never seen this kind of an explanation given exactly by Prabhupada. Even though Prabhupada does talk in that purport of Apichet Suduracharo that there are conditional and constitutional activities, sometimes they may overlap, sometimes they may be anti-parallel and so on, but exact terminologies have not been used. So about a year back when we were studying this book Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is a kind of novel, spiritual novel written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In that he introduces various characters and he sets various different kinds of scenes for philosophical discussions to take place. Very beautifully conceived book, and it's a very comprehensive book which covers the whole gamut of Gaudiya Vaishnava theology. So in one of those chapters, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually talks about these concepts. And the first time we discussed these concepts, it was I was shocked and astonished because Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses the same terminologies of Swabhava and Shraddha. He uses the same terminologies of Swabhava and Shraddha, and he uses the same verses to substantiate the same point, and he explains the same way. So I will give you a small glimpse of what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in his Jaiva Dharma. So in this book, the scene is actually there are a group of Nyaya scholars who were not exactly devotees, but they were experts in Nyaya who come to challenge the Vaishnavas who were staying in Godrumadvip in Mayapur. And the head of those Nyaya philosophers is this Tattva Chudamani, Nyaya Chudamani, I am sorry. So he comes to challenge our Vaishnava Das Babaji Maharaj, who is like one of the senior most Vaishnavas staying there in Godrumadvip. And what we will see is an excerpt from that discussion between Nyaya Chudamani and Vaishnava Das Babaji Maharaj. So here Chudamani is asking Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj, what is this Tatvika Shraddha? So Tatvika Shraddha is what we have discussed as pure devotional faith. So Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj says, simple, guileless faith in the Supreme Lord and consequently sincere bhakti rendered to Him is known as Tatvika Shraddha. Simple, guileless faith in the process of bhakti is Tatvika Shraddha. A sincere candidate is given eligibility to perform bhakti by this Tatvika Shraddha. And this faith or Shraddha is the qualification for practicing bhakti. So, Nyaya Chudamani challenges. He says, some persons have developed faith in the Shastras, but they lack a noble nature. Are they fit candidates for bhakti? Meaning he is asking, they may have faith in Shastras, they may study Shastras, they may have faith in bhakti, but if you see their nature, they are not so gentlemanly, they are very crude, they are very rude, they may have some bad habits also. Can they be considered as fit for practicing bhakti? Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj says, one's type by nature, Swabhava, he uses the same terminology, Swabhava, is definitely not applicable to the eligibility to perform bhakti, which is solely dependent on the Tatvika Shraddha. He says, one's Shraddha decides one's qualification for bhakti and not one's Swabhava. And interestingly, he quotes some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam to prove this point. So he quotes the very same verses that we saw. Jata Shraddho Matkatasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu, the definition of Vaidhi Sadhaka that we saw. Exactly same thing. By highlighting on this, Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman Parityage Api Anishwaraha. Despite knowing that it is any act of sense gratification, any endeavor for sense gratification will eventually lead to troubles, he is nevertheless not able to give up that endeavor for sense gratification completely due to his past vasanas. So this is what he quotes. And then he quotes the subsequent two verses also, which we did not see. Proktena bhakti yogena bhajato masakran munehe kama hridaya nashyanti sarve mayi hridi sthite. And he says that by such a practice of bhakti, the Supreme Lord situated within the heart of the sadhaka completely cleanses the heart of that devotee. Then Chudamani challenges. He says, oh, till now you have been quoting all the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. What if I do not accept the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam? I will reject the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. Can you still prove? Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj says, we have simply presented the conclusion of all the Shastras. Shastra is one. Even if you do not accept Srimad Bhagavatam, then the other scriptures will harass you with the same conclusion. Why to refer to other Shastras? Let's take the example of Bhagavad Gita, he says. Let's see what Bhagavad Gita has to say. And interestingly, he quotes the very same verse. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigatjati kaunteya pratijanehe name bhakta pranashyati. And then he goes still further. He quotes the next verse. Mam hi partha vyapashritya epishru upapayonaya striyo vaishyas tata shudras tepyanti param gatim. So Bhagavad Gita is very clear, Krishna is very clear that even the sinful people can take up to bhakti and they can practice bhakti. They can achieve perfection in bhakti. What to speak of taking up to bhakti? So he says, the purport of this is that a devotee who engages in bhakti, hearing the topics of Krishna consciousness, chanting Harinam, singing his glories with single-mindedness, even if he is addicted to abominable illicit activities which go against the scriptural injunctions, must be considered a sadhu because he is on the righteous path, being situated on the path of devotional service. Devotional service is the only process which is capable of cleansing his heart. Actually, I wanted to share a very interesting real story in this regard. Once, this is a real story as I mentioned, there was a chain smoker. Chain smoker means, it was literally, he would light the next cigarette with the butt of the previous cigarette, so that not even a moment goes without his being in touch with the cigarette. Avyartha kalatvam. He didn't want to waste even a minute without cigarette. So somehow, one devotee from Shri Radha Gopinath Temple, Chowpatty, Mumbai, he took some compassion on this person and he started befriending him. Over a period of time, he developed smoker developed some trust in this devotee, and then the devotee started preaching him Krishna consciousness. He became attracted. He started coming to the temple. Then he started coming to the morning program. But what he would do, he would come and just before the conch shell would blow, he would take his last puff, throw that cigarette, wash his hands and mouth and run to take darshan of Shri Radha Gopinath. And then Gurvashtakam would get over. After Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado, he would run down, again go out of the gate, smoke one cigarette, wash his hands and mouth, and will be back for Narsing Arti. Then after Narsing Arti and Tulsi Arti, he would again run down, smoke one more cigarette, wash his hands and mouth and come back for Japa. And then after every 4 rounds, he would run down and smoke one cigarette and come back. So this kept on happening for a few days, and some devotees got very curious. They wanted to know, where is he running? Why is he running? What is he doing? So they wanted to understand this. So one devotee started following him without his knowledge. So this person went outside the gate and he went to a dark corner, and then he started doing something. And this devotee became very curious. What is he doing? So he went and caught him red-handed and red-mouthed with fire on his mouth in the form of cigarette. He was shocked. He wanted to chastise him heavily. So he caught the collar of that person and he saw actually tears were flowing from his eyes. He was such an addict that half an hour to stay away from smoking was such an excruciating experience for him. But still, for pleasing Krishna, for getting the association of devotees, he was tolerating it. And he knew it was wrong. He knew it was not recommended in the scriptures. But still he was not able to give it up. He was crying. And then he started begging the devotee, Prabhu, please don't stop me from attending the morning program. My plight was still more pathetic. I could not stay away from cigarette even for a moment. But somehow this devotee saved my life. He brought me in touch with Krishna consciousness. Now I am able to tolerate for half an hour without smoking. And I know for sure that if I continue Krishna consciousness, slowly over a period of time, I will be able to get rid of this habit. Please give me some time. Don't stop me from entering into the temple. And believe it or not, in a few months he gave up smoking, and currently he is an initiated devotee. His whole family is initiated. And he is preaching to other people who are similarly troubled by these kind of vices. And he is able to create major impact in their life. So this is exactly what Bhagavatam is talking about. This is exactly what Bhagavad Gita is talking about. This is exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about this constant struggle between one's conditioning and one's value system. But if one keeps the struggle on, in the association of inspiring devotees, if one keeps this struggle on, success is guaranteed. This is what is being discussed here. So therefore, we have to see, therefore devotees often get challenged. That you think you are a pure devotee? Do you think you are a pure devotee that you cannot, that you can give up karma, jnana, yoga, etc.? You are still, see your heart, see your activities. You are so severely conditioned and you are thinking that you are qualified for practicing pure devotional service. Devotees often get challenged in this way. So, but the point is, nowhere in the scriptures it is mentioned that conditioning is an obstacle. Conditioning disqualifies a person from practicing pure devotional service. Is it mentioned anywhere in the scriptures that if you are severely conditioned, then you should actually practice mixed devotional service? Actually, the scriptures say that for practicing mixed devotional service, the prerequisites are very high in terms of conditioning. Like we saw yesterday, for practicing jnana, karma, ashtanga yoga, etc., very high levels of purification of heart is required. But for bhakti it is not required. Therefore, to say that you are too much conditioned to practice pure devotional service is contrary to Shastric teachings actually. So therefore, when Shastras talk about purity, they talk about this purity on different levels actually. Like for example, we will take 3 statements and try to evaluate these statements. The first statement is, Jaya and Vijaya are pure devotees, but the 4 Kumaras are not. So such statements occur in Shastras. So Jaya and Vijaya were personal associates of the Supreme Lord and they were connected to Lord Narayan in Dasyaras. So they had pure devotional faith. Whereas the 4 Kumaras were Jnana Mishra Bhaktas. Their practice of bhakti had a tinge of jnana in it. So their faith was actually mixed. So here Jaya and Vijaya are called as pure devotees because their faith is pure, whereas the 4 Kumaras are called mixed devotees because their faith is mixed. Then the second statement, Rupa Goswami is a pure devotee, but I am not. So like that when people talk, oh, but I am not like Prabhupada. Prabhupada was a pure devotee. I am not a pure devotee, Prabhu. You know, such kind of conversations happen. So here what is the context? Here the context is not that the devotee thinks, oh, I am a mixed devotee, I will have to practice some karma, jnana, yoga also. Not in that sense. He is talking in the sense of, oh, Prabhupada is a pure devotee. In his heart there is not a trace of anartha, but I am filled with anarthas. But in terms of faith, both have pure devotional faith. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavrutam anukulyena krishnanushilanam. Rupa Goswami, that's the standard of bhakti that Rupa Goswami practices. And that is the standard of bhakti that we are also practicing. Just that our hearts are filled with anarthas, but the perfected devotees, their heart is completely clean. So here purity refers to purity of swabhava. And then sometimes statements like this come within the scriptures where it is mentioned, Sridama is a pure devotee, but Arjuna is not. I mean, I am not talking about Arjun Gopa, who is in Vrajalila. I am talking about Arjuna of the 5 Pandavas, Pancha Pandavas. So here also the word purity is used in the sense of rasa. Sridama, his Sakya with Krishna is completely unmixed with, it is not at all mixed with Aishwarya or awe and reverence. Whereas Arjuna, he also had a friendly relationship with Krishna, Sakya, but it was tinged with Aishwarya Gyan. Therefore it is not considered pure. But in terms of Shraddha and Swabhava, both Sridama and Arjuna had pure, both were Nitya Siddha devotees. But in terms of mood, we are not talking in terms of Shraddha or Swabhava, we are talking in terms of flavor, mood, rasa. So these three ways in which the word purity is used in scriptures actually. So we will see some example of the third type. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is Adi Leela 4th chapter, where a mention is made about the Gopa friends of Krishna. Saka Shuddha Sakya Kare Skande Arohan Tumiko na Bada Loka Tumiyami Sama. So the Gopa friends of Krishna, they suddenly jump in on the shoulders of Krishna and they tell to Krishna, you think you are a great person? Don't think like that. We all are same. Now carry us on your shoulder. Like that the Gopa friends tell Krishna. So this is complete pure unalloyed Sakyaras. It has no tinge of Aishwarya. It has no tinge of awe and reverence. And then Krishna says, Vraja Krishna says, Ei Shuddha Bhaktanlaya Karimu Avatar Kariba Vivida Vida Adbhuta Vihar Vaikunta Dhyena Nahiye Lilara Prachar Se Lila Karibayate Mora Chamatkar. He says, taking these pure devotees with me, I shall descend and sport in various wonderful ways. Vaikuntadye nahi yeye lilara prachar. And there is no glimpse of this kind of sweet lila in Vaikunta at all. Sometimes Lord Narayan gets very curious to meet Krishna and along with his devotees. Because he is also astonished to see how can the absolute truth have such sweet relationships. Vrajaira nirmala raga shuni bhaktagan raga marge bhaje yena chadi dharma karma. So this is Vrindavan Krishna speaking. He says, Vrajaira nirmala raga shuni bhaktagan. Then hearing about the pure love of the residents of Vraja, Bhaktagan Ragamarga Bhaje, this will inspire the devotees to practice Raganuga Sadhana. Yena Chadi Dharma Karma, while giving up all other non-devotional activities, they would try to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis and practice Bhakti. Then he says, this is Vrindavan Krishna speaking, he says, Aishwarya Jnane Te Saba Jagata Mishrita Aishwarya Shitila Preme Nahe Mora Prita. He says, whoever, most people in this material world who practice bhakti, their bhakti is covered with the conception of majesty or Aishwarya. Aishwarya Jnanete Saba Jagata Mishrita. Aishwarya Shitila Preme Nahe Mora Prita. Krishna says, that love for me which has become weakened by this Aishwarya Jnana, I don't relish it so much, like that he says. So in this way, sometimes a kind of discussion on purity happens on the platform of rasa also, on the platform of flavor also. Sometimes the love of the non-Vrajavasi devotees towards Krishna is said to be mixed, in the sense mixed with Aishwarya Jnana. It is not mixed with Karma Jnana and Yoga. It is not impure on the level of Shraddha or Swabhav, but it is impure on the level of Rasa. And we also see Kunti Maharani in her prayers to Krishna in the first canto 8th chapter. She says, Gopyadade tvaikritagasi damatavad yate dashashru kalilanjana sambramaksham vaktram niniya bayabhavanaya stitasya samam vimohayati bhirapiyad bibeti. She says, she is recollecting this Damodar Leela. She is recollecting this fortune of Mother Yashoda. She is thinking, how is it that this Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing him, fear personified runs away in fear. But this Krishna is afraid of Mother Yashoda and he is running in fear of Mother Yashoda. How is it possible? And Samam Vimohayati, she says. This is completely bewildering me. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, if Kunti Maharani had thought that Krishna is acting as if he is fearful of Mother Yashoda, then she would not be bewildered. Kunti Maharani knew that Krishna is not acting. At the same time, he is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing whom even fear personified is afraid. So therefore she is bewildered. Like that Srila Prabhupada writes. Beautiful purport in which he touches on this subject matter. I will read some sections of that purport. The Supreme Lord also accepts the loving service of his devotees more relishably when the service is rendered spontaneously out of pure affection, without anything of reverential admiration. Generally, the Lord is worshipped by the devotees in a reverential attitude, Aishwarya Jnanete, Sab Jagata Mishrita. But the Lord is meticulously pleased when the devotee, out of pure affection and love, considers the Lord to be less important than himself. Out of pure affection and love, not out of disrespect, not out of hatred, not out of envy, out of genuine love. They think, Tumi Ami Sama, we both are equal. And then they say, now you carry me on your shoulders, like that. The Lord's pastimes in the original abode of Goloka Vrindavan are exchanged in that spirit. The Lord, in his naturally childish, playful activities, used to spoil the stocked butter of Mother Yashoda by breaking the pots and distributing the contents to his friends and playmates, including the celebrated monkeys of Vrindavan, who took advantage of the Lord's munificence. He was distributing that butter. Mother Yashoda saw this, and out of her pure love, she wanted to make a show of punishment to her transcendental child. He is feared often by fear personified. Yet he is afraid of his mother, who wanted to punish him just in an ordinary manner. Kunti was conscious of the exalted position of Krishna, whereas Yashoda was not. Therefore, Yashoda's position was more exalted than Kunti's, like this Prabhupada writes. So, in this way, in the scriptures, purity is spoken on this platform of rasa also. Now, I will read a small excerpt from the same book, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani by Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj. And I want you to take a few seconds to reflect on these statements. And you can share with the computer screen, or you can share with your partner your reflections on these two statements. So Maharaj writes, there are two major challenges that ISKCON faces in fulfilling its preaching mission. What are the two major challenges? Maharaj says, to transform non-devotees and mixed devotees into pure devotees. This is number one. And number two, to transform pure devotees into perfect devotees. Now you see, two statements. To transform non-devotees and mixed devotees into pure devotees, and pure devotees into perfect devotees. So now, he is using this term pure devotee to address whom? If you say Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, then who is the perfected devotee? See, actually here Maharaj is using the word pure devotee in the sense of a sadhaka who has pure faith. But perfected devotee is one who has perfected the path of pure devotional service and reached the stage of prema. It is not that bhakti only at the stage of prema is pure devotional service and before prema is all mixed devotional service. It is not like that. Starting from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. These are mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami to be the 9 stages of pure devotional service. So which means during Anartha Nivritti and before Anartha Nivritti also, it is pure devotional service only. Nowhere Srila Rupa Goswami mentions it is mixed devotional service. So therefore within pure devotional service, There is pure devotional service in practice and pure devotional service in perfection. Pure devotional service in practice is sadhana bhakti and pure devotional service in perfection is sadhya bhakti or bhava and prema. So one should understand this subject matter. So therefore in conclusion, I will just make 4 statements to conclude this theme that we are discussing now. Nitya Siddhas like Rupa Goswami, they have pure Shraddha and pure Swabhava. Sadhana Siddhas like Narada Muni, who are once sadhakas and eventually perfected their life, they have pure Shraddha and purified Swabhava, which means at some point it was impure, then by practice of sadhana bhakti it got purified and they achieved perfection. Sadhakas like us, we have pure Shraddha and purifying Swabhava. It is currently purifying, work in progress. Mixed devotees have impure Shraddha. So this is the conclusion of our discussion on this whole Shraddha Swabhav discussion, which we discussed in order to evaluate our own practice of bhakti. Does it fit within the definition of Rupa Goswami's Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanavrutam Anukulyena Krishnanushīlanam? So this was an elaborate exercise, but I hope I gave so many examples just to help us get a hang of this concept so that we understand our own practice better. That's all. So, after discussing this theme of definition of pure devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami discusses this topic of the 6 qualities of Uttama Bhakti. What does one stand to gain by practicing Uttama Bhakti? Okay. So he says 6 benefits. Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Laguta Krit Sudurlabha Sandrananda Visheshatma Shri Krishna Karshani Chasa. He says one gets 6 benefits by practicing this Uttama Bhakti. First is Kleshagni. Klesha means suffering, Gna means to destroy. So Kleshagni means its capacity to destroy the sufferings of the living entities. Second is Shubhada. Shubha means auspiciousness and Dha means to give. So Shubhada means Bhakti's capacity to give auspiciousness to all its practitioners. Of course, we will little bit elaborately we will try to see these 6 themes. Now I am just naming them. Moksha Laguta Krit. Moksha is liberation. Laghu means insignificant. Laguta Krit means the bliss of bhakti makes the bliss of liberation seem very insignificant. Sudurlabha means very rare, rarity. Sandra Ananda Visheshatma. Sandra means very condensed, Ananda is bliss. Vishesha means it is not condensed material bliss, but it is a condensed bliss of a special variety. What is that speciality? The speciality is that it is not material but it is spiritual. It is condensed spiritual bliss, Sandrananda Visheshatma, that one experience at the stage of prema. And Shri Krishna Akarshini. Shri Krishna Akarshini means it has the capacity to attract even Krishna. So these are the 6 benefits of practicing Uttama Bhakti, Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanavrutam Anukulyena Krishnanushīlanam. So now we will very briefly try to touch upon these 6 subject matters. What is this Kleshagni, destruction of suffering? Here Rupa Goswami explains that suffering is of 2 types, Prarabdha Karma, Aprarabdha Karma, to make it simple. Prarabdha Karma means those suffering or happiness due to our karma which we are supposed to experience in this lifetime, which we are experiencing and supposed to experience in this lifetime. That is called as Prarabdha Karma. And aprarabdha karma means that suffering or happiness which we will be experiencing in our future lifetimes. So these are the two types of suffering. But if you say bhakti destroys suffering, means bhakti destroys only prarabdha and aprarabdha karma, then this is not complete, because the reaction is due to action, papa, and sinful action is due to sinful desire, which is called as bijam, seed form. Seed form of sinful action is called as bijam. And then the sinful desire is due to sinful vasanas, sinful impressions. So you can say that bhakti destroys suffering only if not only prarabdha karma and aprarabdha karma is destroyed, but bhakti should also destroy the cause of suffering, which is sinful desires and sinful impressions. So here in this section we will see how bhakti does a thorough job of destroying not only the manifestations of suffering but also the cause of suffering. So otherwise, if the cause is not destroyed, then it is as good as not destroying the effect also. Like I remember once I was in Gokul Dham. It's a very beautiful farm community in Belgaum, and there I was giving a seminar on Harinam Chintamani. So it was supposed to be a 1.5 hour session or 2 hour session, I don't remember. So I was given a alarm clock, not a small clock. So just for seeing the time. So I started the class and it went on for a while. It must have gone for about an hour or so, and then I looked at the clock and so it was something was wrong. It showed the same time. I think I started at about 9 a.m. and after about 1 hour class I looked at the clock, it showed again 9 a.m. So I told the devotee that it is showing wrong time. So the devotee came running. He checked his watch, changed the time from 9 to 10, kept the alarm clock and went. Then I continued the class for about another 1 hour, and then I looked at the clock. It showed 10 a.m. It had not moved. Why? Because the real reason why it was showing the wrong time was the battery was dead. He didn't address the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem was that the battery was dead. So therefore, similarly, if only prarabdha karma and aprarabdha karma is destroyed by bhakti, whereas the root of this suffering, which is sinful desires and sinful impressions, are not addressed, then it is as good as not addressing the problem. So therefore, if bhakti has to do a thorough job of destroying suffering, then it should destroy all these 5 stages, or you can say 4. Sinful avidya, which is ignorance or sinful impressions, then bijam, which is sinful desires, which leads to sinful actions, papam, and then that papam leads to prarabdha karma and aprarabdha karma. So all 5 stages it has to be destroyed. So now let's see if bhakti actually destroys all 5 stages of suffering. So he quotes a verse, Srila Rupa Goswami quotes a verse from the 11th canto again. This Uddhav Gita is a very powerful section of Srimad Bhagavatam. Most of the Siddhantic point, any Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta or Vaishnava Siddhanta, to establish the Vaishnava Siddhanta, our Acharyas extensively quote from Uddhav Gita. Very powerful section, this is the Gita within Bhagavatam. This is one of the Gitas within Bhagavatam. There is Uddhav Gita, Aila Gita and so many other types of Gita. This is one of the most exhaustive, it is much more exhaustive than even Bhagavad Gita. Very exhaustive discussion that happens between Krishna and Uddhava, 11th canto, Uddhava Gita. So, Rupa Goswami quotes a verse from the Uddhava Gita to establish this point. Yatagni susamruddharchi karot yedamsi basmasat tatamad vishaya bhaktir uddhavenamsi kritsnashah. So, Krishna is telling Uddhava that, oh Uddhava, just as a blazing fire can consume as much firewood as you supply, similarly, bhakti performed unto me can destroy as much sins as one can possibly commit. So, as much sins as one can possibly commit means this refers to generally aprarabdha karma. Because prarabdha karma is said to be only a small handful of karma which one has to experience in one lifetime. But aprarabdha karma, that which one is supposed to experience in future lives, is compared to a mountain, huge mountain. So therefore, this verse is explained by Acharyas to indicate the potency of bhakti to destroy all future karmas, aprarabdha karma, which one is supposed to experience in future lifetimes. So, here the Acharyas explain that just like burning firewood is secondary to cooking, similarly burning karma is just secondary to the real goal of life. Kleshagni is not the purpose of practicing bhakti. Devotees practice bhakti not to minimize their suffering. Devotees practice bhakti for pleasing Krishna and establishing a loving relationship with Krishna. That is the purpose why devotees practice bhakti. But in trying to please Krishna, in trying to attain that goal, suffering is automatically destroyed. Just like we have some wooden chulas in our kitchen here in GV, Govardhan Eco Village. So sometimes when you have to cook for hundreds of people, a lot of wood goes inside. So if I say, oh, for Janmashtami, our 10 devotees cooked non-stop for 6 hours. And what did they prepare? Oh, after 6 hours they generated some 20 kilograms of ash. It is not a wrong statement, it is real. The 20 kilograms of ash did get generated, but they didn't cook, they didn't sweat out for 6 hours to generate 20 kilograms of ash. They wanted to prepare various kinds of Janmashtami delicacies for the pleasure of the devotees, and in doing that, automatically as a secondary result, ash also got generated. So similarly, devotees perform bhakti for pleasing Krishna, but automatically destruction of suffering also happens. So this is aprarabdha karma. Then he gives a very famous verse from the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Mother Devahuti speaking to Kapila Dev in the 3rd canto. How bhakti destroys prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma means your current body, your current diseases, some chronic illness, your current economic status, everything is a product of one's prarabdha karma. So how bhakti destroys prarabdha karma? Mother Devahuti says, Yannamadeya shravananu kirtanat yaprakhvanad yat smaranadapi kvachit shvadopi sadya savanaya kalpate kutap punaste bhagavannu darshanat. She says, Kutap punaste bhagavannu darshanat. What to speak of a person who has darshan of you? How can I describe his glory? How can I describe his fortune? She is talking about herself. Yan namadeya kutap punaste bhagavannu darshanat. Shwadaha api, even if a dog eater, even if a chandala, sadhyaha savanaya kalpati, becomes immediately qualified to even a Chandala becomes immediately qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices, which only a Brahmana can practice. How? Kvachit, if he once, Yan Namadeya Shravana Anukirtana, if he once hears your holy name, if he once chants your holy name, if he once offers obeisances, or even if he once remembers you, the potency of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam and offering obeisances once is so powerful. How much more powerful would be to have personal darshan of you and personal personal interactions with you? How much more fortunate is that person? Even a Chandala, so a Chandala cannot perform fire sacrifices because he has none of that piety and none of that training that a Brahmana has. Certain activities need some amount of piety as qualification. So this Chandala does not have that qualification. So in this lifetime he cannot do it. But by practice of bhakti, Shvadopi Sadyah Savanaya Kalpate, he immediately becomes qualified. Does it mean a Chandala should immediately once chant the holy name and sit and perform fire yajna? Is that what it means? So here the explanation is given by the Acharyas. What does it mean to destroy the prarabdha karma? What are its implications? How does bhakti destroy this prarabdha karma? Very nice explanation. We will briefly touch on this subject matter because it is very essential and vital. Otherwise it will just be a theoretical understanding. He says, such a person by performing any one of the devotional limbs. So he does not say Shravanam, Cha Anukirtanam, Cha Smaranam, Cha Vandanam. He does not say either, he does not say he should chant and hear and remember and offer obeisances. He says either chanting or remembering or hearing or offering obeisances, even one of those limbs is sufficient. It destroys the prarabdha karmas which have produced this Chandala birth. So he is born as a Chandala because of his prarabdha karma. So it destroys the prarabdha karma. So whatever sinful reactions are there, that is destroyed. And whatever piety is needed to perform that sacrifice, bhakti gives that piety also. So he can practice now. But still, he has not been trained in performing such fire sacrifices. So even if a person is born in a Brahmana family, but if he is not trained from while he was young to perform fire sacrifices, certain things, certain kinds of Vedic training one has to receive while one is young. After one grows up, it is not the age to learn such things. So even if a Brahmana boy misses out on such a training, then he cannot perform those fire sacrifices. Similarly, if this Chandala, if he has missed that opportunity, even though he is qualified in terms of having destroyed the prarabdha karma and having the necessary piety to perform such sacrifices, he cannot perform because he has lost out on that Vedic training. The purpose of this verse is not to advocate his immediate performance of sacrifices. So the verse is not advocating that he should immediately start performing this fire sacrifice. Therefore, if he wants to perform the Vedic fire sacrifices, he has to wait for one more lifetime. But actually what it means is, even though he may be a Chandala who is fit to be rejected by the Varnashram system, but if he has accepted the process of bhakti, he should be given the same respect that a Brahmana deserves, actually more. That is what this verse means. Then one may say, how can you say that prarabdha karma is destroyed? He still has the same body, he still has the same parents. Is it that suddenly he has started practicing bhakti and now suddenly he has, instead of having a Chandala father, Chandala mother, Chandala brother and sister, he now has a Brahmana father, mother, sister and brother? No, he still has the same body. He still has the same father, mother, brother, sister. then how can you say that his prarabdha karma is destroyed? One may say. So, it is mentioned here that bhakti destroys prarabdha karma means the sinful reactions due to that bad Chandala birth, that is destroyed by practice of bhakti. And the bad qualities that he might have acquired due to the Chandala birth, the bad addictions, the bad habits, which may naturally come with such a low birth, that is all destroyed. But the birth itself cannot be changed from one parent to another parents. But the bad qualities are definitely destroyed by practice of bhakti. So, such a low-born practitioner of, such a Chandala practitioner of bhakti, he does not perform sacrifices not because of lack of qualification, but because he has no faith in these Vedic sacrifices. He has faith only in Navada Bhakti. So he does not think, oh, if I perform those Vedic sacrifices which this Brahmana performs, then I can progress in my spiritual life. He does not have that faith. His faith is pure devotional faith. He thinks, my progress is only by practice of bhakti. Krishna bhakti kaile sarva karma krita hoy. I can progress by performing the 64 limbs that Srila Rupa Goswami has chalked out for me. Whereas these Vedic sacrifices are mentioned in the Dharma Shastras. But this person's faith is in Bhakti Shastras. So he does not have, he has higher qualification actually. He is attached to higher Shastras. He is not attached to the lower Dharma Shastras. So therefore, he does not perform those Vedic sacrifices not because he lacks that qualification, but because he lacks that interest and faith. His interest is in performing Navada Bhakti for the pleasure of Lord. His interest is not in performing those Vedic sacrifices to gain some mundane piety. Then one may say, oh, you say that bhakti destroys prarabdha karma, but I see even exalted devotees suffering. How would you explain this? If bhakti does destroy prarabdha karma, then you should not see devotees suffering. So how can you say that bhakti destroys prarabdha karma when clearly devotees are suffering with ill health and so many other such things? So the acharyas explain, devotee's happiness is due to his practice of bhakti, and devotee's suffering is personally given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. None of it is due to his karma. It is not due to his neither is his happiness due to punya, nor is his suffering due to papa. His happiness is due to his proper practice of bhakti, and his suffering is personally given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to bring him closer to his lotus feet. Krishna says, Ananyas chintayanto mam yajana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Vahamyaham, I personally carry what he lacks and I personally preserve what he has. So Krishna gives this assurance to his devotee. So therefore, even the so-called suffering of a devotee is personally orchestrated by Krishna. This is what Krishna tells in Bhagavatam also. Yasyaham anugrinami harishyetad dhanam shanaihi tato adanam tyajantyasya swajana dukkha dukkitam. When I want to show my special favor to someone, Krishna says, harishyetad dhanam shanaihi. Sometimes I take his wealth away, and when I take his wealth away, his relatives and friends, seeing that he has now become a pauper, they reject him. And then in this way, I orchestrate a situation by which he can take exclusive shelter of me. Sometimes my devotee becomes little bit distracted and starts taking some alternative shelter. Even though he knows Krishna is the only shelter, but he may get distracted. Sometimes I orchestrate such situations so that I can bring back my sincere devotees back to my lotus feet. So the suffering created by Krishna, it enhances and accelerates the devotees taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. So, actually Baldev Vidyabhushan in one of his writings, he gives a beautiful analogy of silk. He says, if you take a piece of silk cloth and you take that silk cloth near a flame of a candle, you should not put the cloth on the flame and burn it, but you should take it closer to the flame and just heat the cloth. And the cloth should become hot, but it should not burn. So if after it burns for a few minutes, when you see it from a distance, it looks exactly like a piece of silk cloth. But as soon as you touch it, it crumbles into powder, because all the internal links are broken by that heat. So only externally it looks like silk. Similarly, the suffering of the Vaishnavas, which is personally given by Krishna, is not inauspicious. It is very auspicious. It is meant to bring that Vaishnava closer to his lotus feet. But sometimes, however, devotees' suffering may also come due to their committing aparadhas, especially Vaishnava aparadha. This is possible. But otherwise, generally, for a sincere sadhaka, his suffering is personally orchestrated by Krishna, and such suffering is never ultimately a cause of inauspiciousness. It is always a cause of auspiciousness, because Krishna personally takes responsibility for his devotees. So therefore, in this way we should understand this theme of bhakti destroying prarabdha karma. Then, bhakti also destroys the sinful desires. This is described in the episode of Ajamil, where the Vishnudutas are teaching the Yamadutas about the glories of chanting the holy name and the practice of bhakti. They say, Taistanyagani puyante tapodhanavratadibihi nadarmajam tad hridayam tad api shangri sevaya. He says, Taistani aghani puyante tapodhanavratadibihi. Many different types of sinful reactions may be destroyed by tapasya, charity, and performing some fasting and vows and things like that. But na adharmajam, but the root cause of that sin, which is the sinful desire, is not destroyed by such practices. Tadapi ishangri sevaya, but by serving the lotus feet of Krishna, even that sinful desire is destroyed. This is one of the proofs that is given in the Shastras. And finally, bhakti destroys avidya. This is a famous verse from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of the 4 Kumaras to Prithu Maharaj, where they say, Yatpada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karma shayam gratitamud gratayanti santaha tadvanna riktamatayo yatayo piruddha sroto ganastamaranam bhajavasu. They say that Yatpada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. When one performs devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, karmashayam gratitam udgratayanti santa. The great devotees cut the knot of ignorance which is present in the form of various kinds of sinful vasanas within the heart of the practitioners, is cut. Vidyate hridayagrantis chidyante sarva samshaya shiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishwari, as it is mentioned. So they cut the hridaya granthi, or the vasanas which are present within the heart. Tadvan na riktamatayo yatayo piruddha. But the other empty-minded jnanis and yogis who may not take shelter of the path of bhakti, they will keep on trying and trying and trying to destroy these material desires, but they will never get destroyed. He said this is like being in an ocean and trying to evade one wave after another wave after another wave after another wave. Waves will eternally be present in the ocean. How many waves we can evade? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, eventually the person will get tired and one big wave will sweep that person away. But it is possible by practice of bhakti. Practice of bhakti can wipe away the last trace of material impressions within the heart. This is what is called as Cheto Darpanamarjanam. Complete cleansing of the heart happens by the chanting of the holy name and by practicing the other limbs of devotional service. So in this way, another famous verse from the Padma Puran he quotes, Kritanu yatra vidyabhir haribhaktir anuttama avidyam nirdahati ashu dava jwaleva pannagim. He says, just like if there is a forest fire, the four-legged animals they can escape, the birds they can fly and escape, but the reptiles like snakes which have to crawl, they get trapped. They cannot escape because they have to crawl and they cannot escape the burning fire. Similarly, the sinful impressions, the sinful vasanas or avidya is compared to such snakes which can never escape the forest fire of bhakti, like that it is mentioned. So in this way, Kleshagni is described, that how kleshas in the form of avidya, bijam, papam, aprarabdha karma and prarabdha karma, all of that is destroyed by practice of bhakti. And there is ample proof for this kind of destruction from Bhagavad Gita also, like sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchah. This is Krishna promising destruction of aprarabdha karma in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna also says, Mam hi partha vyapashritya episyu papayonaya striyo vaishyas tata shudras tepi anti param gatim. This is Krishna promising destruction of prarabdha karma in Bhagavad Gita. Then Krishna also says, Yesham tu antagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvamoha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. Here Krishna is talking about destruction of avidya and also tesham evanukampartam aham agyanajam tamah nashayami. This is Krishna talking about destruction of sinful desires and sinful impressions. Like that, various verses, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam is filled with these examples of bhakti having the potency to destroy all kinds of suffering. This is about the first quality of bhakti, which is first benefit of practicing bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, which is Kleshagni. The second benefit of practicing Uttama Bhakti is Shubhada. Shubhada means bestowal of auspiciousness. So what is auspiciousness? Srila Rupa Goswami says, Shubhani Prinanam Sarva Jagata Manurakta Sadgunaha Sukam iti Adini Akyatani Manishibihi. He says that auspiciousness means 4 types. He says, first is Jagat Prinanam. Jagat Prinanam means the person has deep affection and compassion for all living entities. By practice of bhakti, one becomes very affectionately disposed, very compassionately disposed towards all living entities. Sarva Jagatam Anurakta, and he becomes very attractive to all living entities of this world. And Sukha Pradatvam, Sadgunadi Pradatvam. Sadgunadi Pradatvam means it bestows all good qualities in the practitioner, practice of bhakti. And Sukha Pradatvam. Sukha Pradatvam means it bestows happiness. So he says happiness is of 3 types: Vaishaikam, Brahmam and Aishwaram. 3 types of happiness are happiness from material things, the material level happiness which one gets during the early practice of bhakti, and then when the practice of bhakti matures more and more, then he experiences an happiness which is on the level experienced by the liberated souls, and at some point the happiness experienced becomes Aishwaram. It becomes much so condensed that it is much more wonderful than the happiness experienced even by liberated souls. So in this way there are 3 categories of happiness which are produced gradually by practice of bhakti. At sadhana bhakti level, it gives Vaishaikam. At bhava bhakti level or Ruchi Asakti, it produces Brahmam, and at the stage of Bhava and Prema, it is Aishwaram, the bliss of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally, like that. So, Srila Rupa Goswami gives a few examples, few verses. We are not taking all the verses, few of those verses just for sample to understand this subject matter. So, he quotes this verse from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasya prasanno Bhagavan gunair maitriadibir harihi tasmai namanti bhutani nimnam apa ivasvayam. He says, the scene behind this verse is that Dhruva Maharaj has managed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is now, after 6 months of austerities, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes very pleased, bestows him with lot of benedictions including Krishna Prem, and then he comes back, and Uttanapad, knowing that his son is coming back, becomes extremely excited. So he runs to the border of the kingdom, and behind him Surichi and Suniti and all the residents of the kingdom, they come running to receive Dhruva Maharaj. So Uttanapad embraces Dhruva Maharaj and he cries tears of affection. Then Suruchi comes running. The same Suruchi who insulted him with such cruel words. She spoke such unspeakable words to a 5-year-old person, to a 5-year-old child who did not ask for the kingdom, but who just asked for the lap of his own father, legitimate father. She spoke such unspeakable words, such cruel words. And that Suruchi was crying tears of affection. And it was not fake tears, it was real tears. She was embracing Dhruva Maharaj. So one might wonder, how did such a transformation happen in Suruchi in just 6 months? So Maitreya says, no. Transformation has not happened on Suruchi, but transformation has happened on Dhruva Maharaj. This Dhruva Maharaj is no longer the same person. Yasya prasanno Bhagavan. He has managed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gunair maitriadibir harihi. By his wonderful qualities of friendliness and other such qualities, he has managed to please the Supreme Lord. Tasmai namanti bhutani. And everyone becomes so affectionately disposed towards such a person. Nimnam apa ivasvayam. Just like water naturally flows from a higher elevation to a lower elevation place. Similarly, affection naturally flows towards a person who has managed to please the Lord by his practice of bhakti. So therefore, Suruchi has not changed, but Dhruva Maharaj has transformed. He is no longer the same person. So in this way, Rupa Goswami quotes this verse for Sarva Jagata Manurakta, how the devotee becomes very attractive to everyone. Sadgunadi Pradatvam, a practitioner of bhakti develops all good qualities. Very famous verse, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvair Gunes Tatra Samasate Sura Harava Bhaktasya Kuto Mahadguna Manoratena Sati Davato Bahihi. Here, Srila Rupa Goswami, this is a 5th canto verse where it is mentioned, where whoever possesses bhakti, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana, Akinchana Bhakti means Uttama Bhakti. Sarvair Gunes Tatra Samasate Sura. They develop all good qualities present in the demigods and in the source of all those demigods, Krishna himself. They possess all, they develop all those good qualities just by practice of bhakti. So in this way, how it actually accomplishes, this is a whole elaborate discussion. We will not take it up right now. Maybe in some other discussion we can take up to it. Then, Sukha Pradatvam. He quotes a verse from the Tantra Shastras. There are some Satvata Tantras which are Vaishnava manuals of worship. So it is mentioned, Siddhaya Paramascharya Bhuktir Muktischa Shashvati Nityam Cha Paramanando Bhaved Govinda Bhaktitaha. Siddhaya Paramascharya, astounding mystic powers. Bhukti, material enjoyment, mukti, realization, eternal happiness arising from the realization of Brahman. Nityam cha paramanando, the bliss of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaved Govinda Bhaktitah. It manifests in a person who practices bhakti. So here both Vaishayikam, Brahmam and Aishwaram, all three types of happiness is covered. So in this way, bhakti bestows auspiciousness in the practitioners in the form of Sadgunadi Pradatvam, Sukha Pradatvam, Jagat Prinanam and Sarva Jagatam Anurakta. In this way, Srila Rupa Goswami explains about the potency of bhakti to bestow auspiciousness in its practitioners. This is the second benefit of practicing Uttama Bhakti. The third quality is Moksha Lagutakrit. Lagu means insignificant. Practice of bhakti makes moksha seem very insignificant. This manifests at the stage of bhava. So, Rupa Goswami quotes this verse, Hari Bhakti Mahadevya Bhuktir Sarva Muktyadi Siddhayah Bhuktyas Chadbhutas Tasyas Chetikavad Anuvrataha. It is mentioned that Sarva Muktyadi Siddhayah, all the siddhi is headed by liberation. Adbhuta Bhuktyaha, and the most astounding material pleasures. Tasyaha Anuvrataha, they all become the followers of Hari Bhakti Mahadevya, of the queen called Hari Bhakti. Chetikavad, they follow the queen just like fearful maidservants follow. So fearful maidservants are always afraid of being punished by the queen, because the queen has that power, that aristocracy to punish the maidservants. So the maidservants are literally running behind in great fear behind the queen. So Hari Bhakti is compared to that kind of a queen, and all the Mukti, Bhukti, Siddhi and all these personified, they are personified as fearful maidservants, which means wherever bhakti goes, the devotee is not bereft of any of these other opulences. If Krishna feels obliged to such a devotee, he never makes him miss out on any of these opulences. But a devotee is not attached. A devotee rejects all of that. This is the third benefit of practice of bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, which is Moksha Lagutakrit. And the fourth is Sudurlabha. So this Moksha Lagutakrit and Sudurlabha, they manifest at the stage of Bhava. Before Bhava, even though a person experiences bliss of practice of bhakti, but that bliss is not on the level of liberation and beyond. So a sadhaka cannot tell, oh, mukti is very insignificant, because he really does not know what is that bliss of mukti. If he had known, then probably he might give up his bhakti also. So such a person does not know what is the bliss of bhava, and he does not know the bliss of mukti. Therefore, if he says, oh, mukti is so insignificant, I will reject it, it is just a theoretical concept for him. But when one actually reaches the stage of bhava, even the bliss of mukti actually becomes very insignificant. So this bhava bhakti is extremely rare, sudurlabha. Why? So he says, sadhanogair anasangair alabhya suchiradapi harinacha ashu adeya iti dvidasasyat sudurlabha. There are two reasons why bhava bhakti is very rare. He says, sadhanogair anasangair alabhya suchiradapi. One may practice different types of sadhana for unlimited time. They may stand in hot sun for hundreds of years in one leg and perform tapasya like Hiranyakashipu. Or they may light fire all around with sun blazing from the top. Or in winters, they may go in the frigid waters of Himalayas and stand neck deep and perform austerities. So, by such kind of austerities, one can never get one may progress on the path of karma or jnana or yoga, but one cannot progress on the path of bhakti by performing these different types of sadhana, because anasangair, without asakti, one will never get bhava. And one can get asakti only if he practices this path of Navada Bhakti. And to get the faith in practicing Navada Bhakti is very rare. Therefore, Bhava Bhakti is Sudurlabha, very rare. And the second reason why Bhava Bhakti is very rare is that even if one practices Navada Bhakti and reaches the stage of Asakti, still Krishna will wait and test that devotee for some time before giving Bhava, because that Bhava is, he will wait till he gives that Bhava Bhakti, because if he gives it too easily, then he will have to surrender to that person. So therefore, this is the second reason why Bhava Bhakti is very rare. And in another Tantra Shastra verse it is mentioned, Jnanataha sulabha muktir bhuktir yagyadi punyataha seyam sadhana sahasrair hari bhakti sudurlabha. It is mentioned, one may get easily Jnanataha sulabha muktir. By practice of Jnana, one may easily get mukti. Bhuktir yagyadi punyataha, by performing yagya and other such punya karyas, one may easily get some bhukti or enjoyment. But by doing these different types of sadhana, you cannot get bhakti very easily. Bhakti means only one sadhana. One can achieve liberation by practice of Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga. There are different paths of attaining that one goal of liberation. There may be different ways of attaining the one goal of Swarga and other such material things like charity and austerity and so on. But to achieve the one goal of Prema, there is only one way. That is Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. And to get the qualification to practice Shuddha Bhakti is very rare. It comes only through the medium of devotees. So therefore, the first reason, Sudurlabha. By performing various other sadhanas, you cannot reach. The second type of rarity, that even Krishna does not very easily give that pure devotional service. He says, Rajan patir gururalam bhavatam yadonam daivam priyakulapati kvachaking karova astveva manga bhajatam bhagavan mukundo muktim dadati karhijit smana bhakti yogam. This is a verse from the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing about the episode of Rishabhadev, he feels very dejected in a positive way, that how glorious is this lineage of Swayambhuva Manu, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared in the form of Rishabhadev. But we, Pandavas, or the Kuru dynasty, is so unfortunate that not even one incarnation appeared in our dynasty. How unfortunate. Like that Parikshit Maharaj was feeling. And Shukadeva Goswami understood. He says, my dear Parikshit, why are you lamenting like this? Rajan patir gururalam bhavatam yadunam daivam priyak kulapati kvachaking karova. He says, even though Krishna did not, Rishabhadev is just an expansion of Krishna. But the original personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, he may not have appeared in your dynasty, but what all he did not do for you Pandavas, for your own grandfathers. Daivam priyak kulapati kvachaking karova. He acted as your worshipable deity, your spiritual master, your friend, your kulapati, the director of your activities. And sometimes, not to the Yadus, but for you Pandavas, he even acted as your servants. He acted as Yudhishthira Maharaj Shantidut. He acted as Arjuna's chariot driver. In these capacities, he did not act even for the Yadus. So you are more fortunate than even the Yadus. Why are you lamenting like this? He says, Bhajatam muktim dadati karhijit smana bhakti yogam. Krishna does not give very easily bhava and prema and personal relationship with his devotees. He may give mukti easily, but he will not give bhava and prema that easily. And you have received that. Why are you lamenting like this? Like this, Shukadeva Goswami tries to pacify Parikshit Maharaj by establishing the rarity of achieving this prema. And finally, the last two qualities that one gets by practice of bhakti is Sandrananda Visheshatma. It is composed of a special condensed bliss. Sandra means condensed, Ananda is bliss, and Vishesha, it is not condensed material bliss, but it is condensed spiritual bliss. He quotes Shukadeva Goswami, Rupa Goswami himself composes this verse. Brahmanando bhavedesha chet parardha guni krita naiti bhakti sukam bodhehe paramanu tulamapi. If one experiences the bliss of Sayujya Mukti or Brahmananda for the lifespan of Brahmaji, that bliss cannot compare to even a drop of bliss that is experienced on the level of prema, like that he says. And then he quotes another verse from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to Nrsingadev. He says, Tvat sakshat karanakhlada vishuddhabdi stitasya me sukani goshpadayante brahmanyapi jagadguru. O Jagadguru or O Nrsingadev, the bliss that I am experiencing by coming closer to your lotus feet, it is like an ocean. In compared to that ocean, the bliss of Brahmananda is like water contained within the hoof prints of a calf. It is very insignificant, like that. And so on. And the last quality is Shri Krishna Akarshini. How practice of bhakti attracts not only Krishna, but even his associates to that person. So you see, Krishna definitely gets attracted to prema, but even if you see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when two devotees, exalted devotees would come together, they would go in ecstasy, they would embrace each other, tears flowing from their eyes, hairs would stand on end, their voice would get choked up, they would swoon in ecstasy, spending time with each other. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Kritva harim prema bhajam priyavarga samanvitam bhaktim vashīkaroti iti Shri Krishna Akarshini mata. He says, bhakti is called Shri Krishna Akarshini. Why? Kritva harim prema bhajam. It makes Lord Hari become addicted to prema. Not only Lord Hari, priyavarga samanvitam, along with his associates, all the associates also become addicted to such a person. Therefore, vashīkaroti, it brings them under control. Therefore, it is called as Shri Krishna Akarshini. So, of these 6 qualities, Kleshagni and Shubhada, they start manifesting at the stage of sadhana bhakti, but they achieve perfection at the stage of bhava and prema. Whereas Moksha Lagutakrit and Sudurlabha, they start manifesting at the stage of bhava, but they achieve perfection at the stage of prema. And Sandrananda Visheshatma and Shri Krishna Akarshini, they start manifesting at the stage of prema only. Like that. So in this way, we come to the end of this discussion on the 6 qualities of Uttama Bhakti. There is one small topic about qualification to understand Bhakti. We will take this small theme tomorrow and then immediately start the second wave of this eastern section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sorry, I went little bit over time because I just wanted to complete this section. But thank you very much for your patient listening, and hopefully you will come again on the 4th day to continue this discussion further. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna.